amendment which has been introduced is in two parts. So the first part of the amendment really provides for this idea of nil compensation. And this zero compensation would happen in two situations possibly. One, they say, where parties agree, in other words, the landowner who stole your land, some reason agrees now to give back the land on a basis of him or her receiving zero compensation. So there's agreement between the landless and the land thief. And then the second part of this amendment is that the court itself has now the, if you like, option of determining compensation to be nil, to be zero compensation. And that's how they understand this land expropriation. That's the first part. In other words, nil or zero compensation when there's agreements between two parties or imposed by the court. The second part of the amendment says there must be a law that determines under what circumstances this option of the zero or nil compensation can be paid. And that is, I believe, where the trap is at. Because the problem is, how do you determine zero compensation when in fact the idea of compensation is already determined by our courts? And I think we must go into some details there, because Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi is deeply implicated in that conversation. But let's now deal with just the logic of this idea that somehow the landowners, white people who stole our land, who kept our land for 25 years, somehow miraculously now are really willing and impatient to donate land to us. Because that's what it suggests. And this government actually believes that there are these white people out there who are waiting to give land to black people. And that is why there's now a policy just being announced that there's a website, and in that website, white people who want to donate land will go and log in and say, oh, I've got land to give away, who wants land? This government is out of its mind. And these notions that there are these white people who are all out there to give back land is part of the problem that we have, and driven by these two characters I've mentioned earlier on, Professor Ruth Hall and now Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi. Let us come back to the issue of compensation. Is it possible for a zero compensation to be accepted in the South African constitutional order? The answer is no. Tembeka Ngcukaitobi is dishonest, is lying to landless people, to the ANC, and now Parliament has accepted this lie. Let me give you an example. Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, some people don't know that this advocate actually sits in the land claims court as an acting judge. Advocate Tembeka Ngcukaitobi sits at the land claims court. We have in South Africa a special court called the Land Claims Court. It deals with cases of restitution and claims. It sits here in Randburg, right? He is an acting judge there. In fact, Tembeka and Ruth Hall, they keep on saying, do not amend the Constitution. The Constitution as it is adequate to address even the question of land expropriation without compensation. That's their argument, and that's why they've given us an amendment which says zero compensation. Right? Now, here's the thing. Tembeka Ngcukaitobi actually has dealt with a matter that came before him, the Mngxitama case, where these labor tenants in Mpumalanga had been dispossessed of their land, and they go to the land claims court. This white farmer who stole their land is there and is opposing it. Tembeka Ngcukaitobi, as the judge, make a decision, and his decision was, well, what is the market evaluation of the land? The market valuation was 1.8 million rand. He then made these complicated calculations under the same notion that the Constitution does not say you must pay market-related compensation. In other words, the Constitution does not prescribe willing buyer, willing seller. Tembeka Ngcukaitobi made all those calculations, and he could only take away 300,000 from the 1.8. So then he said, well, the compensation that must be paid is 1.5. Do you hear what I'm saying? The Mngxitama case comes before Tembeka Ngcukaitobi. The market value of that property, in other words, what white person must be given for this stolen property, if you calculate it from just a market value, it was 1.8. He said no, he's taking away 300,000 because the constitution allows for him to calculate the compensation differently, and then we end up with him saying, well, give the white man 1.5. Ha! You know what happens? The white man takes the matter to the appeals court in Bloemfontein. The full bench of the appeals court says Tembeka Ngcukaitobi is crazy. They in fact make a decision that the white man, having stolen our land, must be paid full 1.8, which is a market value. That is the appeals court. That is the decision of one of the highest courts. In fact, we know that even the Constitutional Court has made decisions which determines compensation which is just and equitable. That is what the Constitution says. All compensation must be just and equitable. And just and equitable has been determined to mean market value. So why is Tembeka Ngcukaitobi and Ruth Hall misleading Parliament like this? It is this notion somehow that the Constitution is supreme, the Constitution is super, and the Constitution is adequate. They will run with that notion to the point of even telling untruths and putting us in this situation where now we're sitting with the notion of a zero compensation, which is inconsistent with the logic of the South African Constitution. Not only that, inconsistent with a determination made by some of our highest courts that in all circumstances, when you expropriate land, you're going to pay a market value. So it must be asked, why did he, Ngcukaitobi, not tell the nation that he has already attempted this and he has failed? By the way, the appeals court did not just overturn his decision and give the white man the 1.8 million. It did that with costs. All we are saying is games have been played in this country by these liberals who want to put the constitution ahead of our people instead of allowing Parliament to do what Black First Land First have said. We have said, amend the constitution. We ourselves appeared before Parliament. We said, amend the constitution. Remove the entire section 25. Amend it in this manner. It must simply say, all land in South Africa is stolen property, stolen by white people, from black people, and all land in South Africa belongs to black people. Once you do that, you remove the notions of compensation, or is it a zero compensation, or it is a market, because you determine that land is a national property. It must be returned to those who own it. This is the black perspective. Until next time, my name is Andile Mngxitama.